Hello guys, good morning everybody. Welcome to your YouTube channel and do let me know whether I am audible and visible to you guys. Good morning everybody. हाँ जी, एक बार confirmation दे दो. I am audible and visible. Audible. Okay. So let's start the session for today. Right, there are a lot of interesting news that we have to discuss in today's newspaper, and there are little bit pieces of information that has been there in various pages of the newspaper. So we're going to try and discuss each and every aspect of those particular news. Now, one of the most important news, I think the whole world is aware of it, that is the consecration today. PM priest to lead ceremonies. I think ये सबको पता है, right? So right, today is going to be the inauguration or all the ceremonies that will be taking place at Ayodhya. Okay, now moving to the next part, that's the most important news, which is kind of what we can call it a very important news from what we say about the communities whose have a certain language, and that is restricted to only very similar small number of people, right? And as a result, there is a fear that that might language get extinct because there is no script for those languages. In India, there are several languages like that, and there are very few speakers that we have in context of those languages. So there is a particular community that is a Chakliya community. Now this community is very important. It is a language in Kerala by this Chakliya community, and this language is known as Madhika. Now these are certain points that we have to remember, right? I'm going to highlight these particular points so that you can write it in your notes as well. So this is the Kerala Chakliya community. This is the language they have been speaking, that is Madhika, and there are only 2 persons left in the entire of Kerala that are speaking this particular language, that is this Madhika language. Now because there is no standardization, there is no script, so there is a fear that this language might get extinct over the period of time. So this is the biggest concern that is there related to this language. Now when we talk about this language, it is a blend of Telugu, Tulu, Kannada and Malayalam. So these are certain points that we have to remember, that are certain trivial information, that when we talk about this language, it is a blend of Telugu, Tulu, Kannada and Malayalam. Now one of the other point that we have to remember regarding this context is, when we talk about Chakliya community, earlier they used to be a part of scheduled tribe list, but now it has been upgraded and they have been put under scheduled caste of Kerala. So this is also another point that we have to understand. Plus, when we talk about the original let's say starting of this Madhika, or these people who have been speaking Madhika language, they are actually the original inhabitants in the Karnataka region. Earlier they used to be in the Malabar region of Karnataka, and from there they got into Kerala, and from where now we are getting this particular language, that is this Madhika language. So these are 4 facts that you have to remember related to Madhika language and the community, that is the Chakliya community, right? किसका blend है, पहले originally कहां से थे, और अभी फिलहाल पे अगर हम बात करें, they are under the scheduled category, अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं caste category of Kerala. Okay, now moving to the next part. Now, ahead of consecration, PM finishes Tamil Nadu temple visits. Now, these are certain facts that are very important from our AMC point of view, that is ancient, medieval and culture, because there is a mention of certain temples that have been mentioned over here. So you need to remember the history and see the structure, what kind of design you have in those structures. And the most important thing that was done by the Prime Minister yesterday was he visited the Kothandra Ramswamy temple and the Arichal Munai point in Dhanushkodi. Now these are 2 important things that we have to remember. One is related to the Kothandra Ramswamy temple, and second one is related to Arichal Munai point in Dhanushkodi. When I talk about this Arichal Munai point, this is very important from our geographical point of view, because इसके north में है Park Bay और इसके south में है Gulf of Mannar. So this becomes very, very important. I can write it as well. When I talk about this this point, that is Arichal Munai point, this is basically what के हमारे north में क्या है, Park Bay, and in the south we have Gulf of Mannar, and in between we have this point, that is Arichal Munai point. And second one is related to this temple, that is Kothandra Ramswamy temple. It is where it has been believed that Lord Rama बेसिकली ने कॉरोनेट किया था उन्होंने, अगर हम बात करते विभीषण को, दैट वाज अ ब्रदर ऑफ रावण. सो दिस इज आल्सो वन अनदर इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट दैट यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड, दैट हियर ही coronated विभीषण as the king of Sri-Lanka. So these are certain points that we have to remember in this context related to the temple and related to this point. Okay, now moving to the next part. Now this is also very important. It is the Nisar mission on track for a launch soon, NASA official. Now this is a mission that has been a joint effort of NASA and ISRO. I will tell you the full details of this mission. This NASA ISRO synthetic aperture radar mission is designed to observe natural process and changes in the Earth complex system and is on track for an early 2024 launch. It was being said by the NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory senior official. Now this is a mission that will be deployed in the lower Earth orbit, where they will be trying to track of the Earth's complexities and of the Earth's ecosystem. And when it will be launched, we will be talking more about this mission, that is this Nisar mission. This is very important. It is designed to observe natural process, and the final test of the mission are scheduled this week only. And when we will be having the final test, then only we would be talking about in a more detailed manner. बस यहाँ पर अभी आप इतना समझ लीजिए, जब हम नासा और इसरो के मिशन की बात कर रहे हैं, ये एक ज्वाइंट मिशन है जिसका नाम है निसार मिशन. नाउ this is also very interesting news. This was basically because this is 19th non-alignment movement की जो summit हुई है, it has happened in the capital of Uganda, and Uganda की capital क्या है, Kampala, right? So these are certain points that we have to understand. पेपर में डायरेक्ट क्वेश्चन आ सकता है कि 19th NAM summit कहां पे हुई थी? It happened in Kampala. Now the one of the important point that we have to understand in this context is कि वहां पे पहले एक डिक्टेटर होते थे जिनका नाम था Idi Amin, right? So there used to be a dictator by the name of Idi Amin who ruled nearly for 52 years, and there was a particular thing that was started by this dictator, that he expelled a lot of South Asians from the let's say territory of Uganda. Now despite being that Indians and the South Asians had rendered a lot of service to this particular country, and as a result the current president, when we talk about Yoweri Museveni, was having a regret that Indians and the South Asians had to face such expulsion from the hands of the dictator of Uganda, that was Idi Amin, and he expressed gratitude for the service that has been done by the Indians, or let's say towards South Asians, towards the people of Uganda, right? So this also becomes very, very important news, right? We do not, we cannot say कि हम सब कुछ let's say we cannot expect anything from UPSC. UPSC is such an unpredictable exam कि हमें ऐसी चीजों को ध्यान रखना बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है. So 19th NAM summit, if we talk about, it happened in Kampala, and that is the capital of Uganda, right? और उनके पहले डिक्टेटर कौन थे? ईदी आमिन थे. अभी जो उनके प्रेसिडेंट है वो है योवरी मुसेवेनी. And he said that that move was a mistake, and he expressed gratitude to the Indian community of the Uganda for the service that they had rendered over the decades, right? He said that this movement was a rare expression of regret about an event that has long been considered as one of the traumatic incidents that struck the Indian diaspora in the 20th century. So this is the point that we have to understand in this particular context. Okay, now moving to the next part. Now this is one of the most important news that we have in today's newspaper. It is about an alien species by the name of mosquito fish, and it is the threat that an alien species has on the native species that is being discussed here over here, and it is a clear live example that has been demonstrated by the impact of an alien species, that is this mosquito fish. Now one thing we have to understand is that we know a lot of water bodies are infected, if we talk about, by the impact of mosquitoes. As a result, it gets basically, let's say, lead to a lot of mosquito and vector-borne diseases. Now in order to control this, there was a particular thing that was let's say that was thought of कि यार हम एक काम कर सकते हैं कि इसको मारने के लिए either we can use pesticides, right, in order to kill the mosquitoes. The another thing they thought, rather than going for these chemical methods, we can go for a particularly introduction of a species that would be able to kill the mosquito larva. So as a result, the governments, mainly if we talk about America, USA, America, USA हो गया, Australia, New Zealand, and in fact India as well, even during the time of British, right, they started introducing this alien species by the name of mosquito fish. Now जब हम mosquito fish की बात कर रहे हैं, यहां पे हमारे पास दो वेरिएंट्स देखने को मिलते हैं, वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट. These two variants that are by the name of Gambusia affinis and Gambusia hulbricki. Now, these are two important names that you have to memorize. I will highlight their names. Gambusia affinis and Gambusia hulbricki. Now, these were the two alien species that had been introduced. Now, what it led to was, it led to the, let's say, extinction of the native species by the introduction of these two alien species by the name of Gambusia affinis and Gambusia hulbricki. And Gambusia stands as one of the most widely spread freshwater fish, aided by their robust adaptability and high tolerance for fluctuating environmental conditions. Now Gambusia की खासियत क्या है? जब हम बात करते हैं किसी भी alien species की, they are very much, what we can say is, they are able to adapt and able to fluctuate themselves. That gives them the edge over the native species, which get highlighted by these impacts of what we have seen in the case of these let's say alien species that had been introduced. Now this is one of the concern that has not been only focused in India but also the countries globally as well. Now when we talk about, let's say, Gambusia, it was introduced in India in 1928 during British rule, very important, and later various governmental organizations such as ICMR, National Institute of Malaria Research, local municipal corporations, fisheries department, health department, along with other private organizations, took over as part of their efforts to combat malaria. तो उन्होंने बोला कि मलेरिया को सबसे इजीली टैकल करने का तरीका क्या है? इंट्रोड्यूस कर दो मॉस्किटो फिश. बट ये चीज वो भूल रहे थे कि मॉस्किटो फिश को इंट्रोड्यूस करने से, हाँ, मॉस्किटोस कम तो हो पाएंगे, बट उससे जो नेटिव वैरायटी है, बायोडायवर्सिटी की जो स्पीशीज हैं, वो इंपैक्ट हो रहे हैं इंडिया के अंदर. एंड दिस कैन बी corroborated by various events that we have seen, like if you see that say if we talk about what we can call about let's say, अगर हम बात करते हैं हुलब्रुकी की, अगर हम बात करते हैं एफिनिस की, ये ज्यादातर नॉर्दर्न इंडिया के अंदर है, राइट. And when we talk about these Gambusia stories, you must have seen in Australia that introduction of this Gambusia species, that is this mosquito fish, it led to the local extinction of the red-finned blue eye and endemic fish species. They have been observed preying on the eggs and the larvae of native fish and frogs. A study from the New Zealand highlighted that the threat posed by Gambusia to their native aquatic biodiversity. In India, some reports have indicated a decline in microphylla tadpoles following the introduction of Gambusia. So can you see that Gambusia से frogs को असर पड़ रहा है, tadpoles को फर्क पड़ रहा है, and this is having an impact on aquatic biodiversity as well. So as a result, that was that World Health Organization in 1982 stopped recommending Gambusia as a mosquito control agent. And in 2018, very important, the National Biodiversity Authority of the Government of India designated this Gambusia affinis and this Gambusia hulbricki as an invasive alien species. Now, when we see the biggest threat to biodiversity that we have around the world, it is the invasive alien species, and it is quite evident by way वर्ल्ड हेल्थ ऑर्गेनाइजेशन की बात करें या हमारे देश का जो नोडल एजेंसी है बायोडायवर्सिटी को लेके, दैट इज नेशनल बायोडायवर्सिटी अथॉरिटी, दे हैव क्लियरली डिक्लेयर्ड इट एज इनवेजिव एलियन स्पीशीज. बट व्हाई इट इज इन न्यूज? बिकॉज बोथ द गवर्नमेंट एंड द नॉन गवर्नमेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस हैव बीन स्टिल यूजिंग दिस वैरायटी ऑफ मॉस्किटो फिश still to control the problem of malaria. That is why this article has come in today's newspaper, and it becomes one of the most important articles, because this is the thing that we have to understand is कि हमें इससे कुछ और मेथड यूज करना पड़ेगा अगर हमें अपनी बायोडायवर्सिटी को बचाना है, and if we have to protect our native biodiversity. Otherwise, over the period of time, you might see the native species would get extinct over the cost of these alien species that by the time they, let's say, try to adapt and fluctuate, they become invasive, and they compete with the native species and they make them, let's say, extinct from that particular native place. So this is one of the things that we have to understand. We have to move away from them and we have to come up with certain other solutions that can be more reliable and they can protect our biodiversity as well. I am telling you guys, पेपर में जब क्वेश्चंस हम देखते हैं तो ऐसे ही आते हैं यूपीएससी में. I am telling you, these are the type of questions UPSC feed upon. They will not be asking about traditional questions on biodiversity. They might not ask you about Project Cheetah that has been in so much in news, but they will try to ask you questions like this because now it becomes one of the important part of our current affairs and these are the things that you have to put it in your notes. I hope this point is clear to everybody. ये सबसे important article था आज का. इसमें कुछ highlights देख लेते हैं क्या क्या थी फटाफट. When we talk about threat to biodiversity, invasive alien species are the biggest threat. And when we talk about alien species, we have this current example of mosquito fish that was introduced in India in 1928 during British times in order to control malaria. But over the period of time, it had an impact on the country's biodiversity as well. Plus, it had an impact on tadpoles. In Australia and New Zealand, it had an impact on frogs as well. So, as a result, WHO in 1982 and National Biodiversity Authority in 2018 declared it as an invasive alien species. That is the variety of this mosquito fish, which is Gambusia affinis and Gambusia holbrook, right? So, these are the points that we have to remember in this context of the news that we have just discussed today. Right? I hope this point is clear to everybody. हाँ जी, एक बार confirmation दे दो comment section में. Okay. Now these are the certain acts that we have. कि जो Center for Policy Research, I think everybody knew that it used to have its think tank, but last year its FCRA license was suspended. Now this whole, if we talk about their license has been cancelled by the government of India when we talk about Foreign Contribution Regulation Act. So they will not be able to receive any funding. As a result, there has been certain remarks that have been made on the government of India that they try to dictate and assert their authority over everybody that tries to be against or have a narrative against them. So as a result, that has been what they have tried to discuss, that there have been certain cases where there have been reports that India may be democracy nahi hai. There have been cases of electoral autocracy as well. So these are the kind of allegations that have been put on the government of India in this article, but we have to have a certain opinion on this as well, right? We cannot be motivated by some editorial. We have to understand that if government feels that someone is running a program or a narrative or a particular agenda that is against the country's security, internal security, sovereignty, then the government will never be able to, let's say, allow that to happen. And as a result, government has done whatever in its capacity that it wanted to do, that it has shut down the license of the SCRA. But one thing we have to understand is that when we talk about a healthy democracy, you need to have a proper free and fair election where people have the right to cast their votes. Plus, there has to be a expression of civil liberties. If you do not have an expression where you cannot have your freedom of speech and expression, then that is very much detrimental to the point of democracy, right? So this is the things that you have to understand कि जब हम democracy की बात करते हैं, democracy is not about कि you have the right to vote. No, you shall have the right to vote and you have to a right that you are choosing from so many political parties. If there is a one party rule as well, so that also doesn't tantamount to when we talk about democracy. Democracy is about having wider options. Democracy is about having right to vote, universal adult franchise, and then democracy is about right to have your freedom of speech and expression as well. Okay. Now moving to the next part. ठीक है, ये जापान का एक सॉफ्ट लैंडिंग हुई है मिशन की, स्लिम मिशन था उनका, पर अभी कोऑपरेट नहीं कर सकते पूरी तरीके से. इट विल बी रिवील्ड इन अ फर्दर ड्यू कोर्स ऑफ टाइम, बट यू हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट देयर इज अ मिशन दैट इज हैड मेड द फिफ्थ कंट्री बन चुकी है जापान, दैट हैज सॉफ्ट लैंडेड ऑन द मून, बट देयर आर स्टिल सर्टेन लेट्स से कॉम्प्लिकेशंस रिलेटेड टू इट. सो यू नीड टू रिमेंबर द नेम ऑफ द मिशन. दैट इज द नेम ऑफ द मिशन इज स्मार्ट लैंडर फॉर इन्वेस्टिगेटिंग मून, एंड इट वाज द लॉन्च प्रोग्राम ऑफ JAXA, दैट इज द जापान एरोस्पेस एक्सप्लोरेशन एजेंसी. बस यहां से इतनी इंफॉर्मेशन आप अपने नोट्स में ऐड कर सकते हैं. ओके, now this is related to the problems that we are witnessing between Israel and the Arab countries, plus the problem that has extended beyond Gaza. reach the Red Sea, in the Gulf of Aden, in the Arabian Sea, and it is posing a greater challenge to the proposed G20 program, that is India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. So this becomes one of the concerns, and that has been highlighted in this article, a revival of the IMEC idea and the choppy geopolitics. Now you know that geopolitics will never be the same. There were earlier instances where we would have, let's say, hoped that there might be a certain peace that could come back again to the West Asia after there were signing of certain accords like Abraham Accords between UAE, Israel, Bahrain. So as a result, it gave certain hope. But now what we are witnessing is that there is this conflict that is going on in this Arab world, and it is quite challenging one, because if geopolitics or conditions हम अगर हमारी politically सही नहीं होंगी, then it becomes very detrimental to India as well. So in order to find a certain route that is going apart from that Suez Canal route that we actually know right now is troubled by the problems that are going on in the Arab countries, that is the Yemen-backed Houthi rebels, and what they are doing in the Red Sea, that is quite evident from the attacks that have been made on the merchant vessels, plus the attacks that have been made in the Red Sea, plus the distress calls that have been made by a lot of merchant vessels, where are a lot of aircraft, we can say Navy vessels have responded to those distress calls as well. So as a result, वहां पे इतनी problem है तो alternative route चाहिए. Alternative route could be in the form of India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. But what we are seeing in those countries as well, there is a lot of problem, there is a lot of geopolitical scenario that has to be addressed first before we start thinking about this India, Middle East, Europe Economic Corridor. Okay. Now this is a very interesting article. Better use of technology needs free access. Now here there has been a certain, what we can call it, about annual status of education report आई थी अभी recently, beyond basics, and that highlighted the gulf that is there between boys and girls in relation to the access of smartphone, right? Now one of the things that they are trying to highlight over here, let me try to tell you, is related to the aspect they are trying to say that boys and girls, despite the ownership, if they were given the smartphones, and this was a study that was conducted as well, if they are given the smartphones, let's say for a certain period of time, they would be able to operate it, right? They can open a let's say YouTube, वो सब चीजें वो कर सकते हैं. But there are certain operations that are there within this what we can call smartphone या tab वगैरह की बात करते हैं, है ना, कि बहुत सारी चीजें होती हैं जो टेक्निकल डिटेल्स होती हैं, वो तभी आ सकती हैं when you are providing them the ownership as well. And that was the thing that has been discussed in this article. So you can relate it to the sustainable development goal that talks about gender equality and that talk about reducing inequality as well, that we need to provide technology plus with free access as well. When girls will be having free ownership like certain boys have in context of smartphones or in tablets, then you might see that the women and the girls would have better interest as well, plus they will be able to adapt to the new technology as well. Problem is what, that the women and the girls do not have the ownership of these smartphones. As a result, what is happening, they are able to operate or browse the things, but they are not able to intricate जो details होती हैं उनको वो समझ नहीं पाते हैं, और उसको समझने के लिए you need to have the ownership. And this was this research or experiment that was conducted, and it was quite fruitful, where it was able to show that if we provide them ownership, then girls are not less than boys in any sense, and they would be able to compete with the boys in order to understand the details of the technology, right? So this is the point that has been discussed in this article, and you can use it in your answers as well, right? Okay. Now this is the point, I think सबको पता है कि अभी शेख हसीना जी फिर से रीइलेक्ट हुई हैं. अभी recently I had discussed and there was an article discussion by Anuj sir as well related to कि how India Bangladesh relations के ऊपर था, and we know that India Bangladesh का अगर हम बात करें आज के टाइम पे relations have been good, but recently what we have seen is China has been investing a lot in Bangladesh. So as a result, that gets a lot of what we can say wake up call for India as well, that India also has to ramp up the infrastructure and the cooperation between Bangladesh as well. So let's try to understand what is the gist of this news. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina returned to power in Bangladesh for a historic 4th straight month earlier this month after her party Awami League secured 2/3 of the seats in the January 7 national elections. PM Modi and Sheikh Hasina made history last year, very important, when they inaugurated Akhora Agartala rail link that connects Bangladesh and the Northeast through Tripura. Now, this is very important. This was the thing that was signed last year. That was Akhora Agartala rail link as well. Now, adding to India's concern is the deepening relation between Bangladesh and China, marked by substantial Chinese investment in infrastructure in recent years. So, this is the thing that I've been telling you कि चाइना की इन्वेस्टमेंट बहुत बढ़ रही है अगर हम बात कर रहे हैं बिकॉज दे वांट इट टू बी अ पार्ट ऑफ इट्स बीआरआई इनिशिएटिव दैट इज बेल्ट एंड रोड इनिशिएटिव अगर हम बात करें बांग्लादेश को सो इट बिकम्स लॉट ऑफ कंसर्न बिकॉज वी आर ऑलरेडी थ्रेटन्ड बाय द प्रेजेंस ऑफ चाइना अराउंड अस इन पाकिस्तान इन श्रीलंका in Maldives and let's say Nepal, Bhutan, they are getting closer. Plus we have a problem around line of actual control, right? So those are the areas affected by as well. Now we have the military coup backed by China in Myanmar. So all of we can see is China trying to contain India. ठीक है, बांग्लादेश बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है एंड वी कैनॉट हैव बांग्लादेश लेट्स से बी मोर इंटिल्टेड एंड इंक्लाइन टुवर्ड्स चाइना रादर देन इंडिया. ओके राइट, सो ये न्यूज तो सारी चली रही, आपको पता ही होगा वर्ल्ड अफेयर्स की, राइट? रशिया यूक्रेन, फिर वही इजराइल गाजा, सेम इशू. Air pollution and geopolitics lead to cross-border challenges in South Asia. Now, one of the things that has been discussed in this article that is quite interesting is that when we talk about major what we can call it about problem of air pollution, then it is also not only about internal but external factor as well, right? Now there are certain important air sheds, certain packets of air that are there in the South Asian region and that move from let's say Pakistan to India to Bangladesh, and when we see the air quality of Pakistan in Lahore, then it is quite disturbing. There the air quality index sometimes reaches beyond 1000 as well. So as a result, whatever has been impacted on India in cause of air pollution, it is because of this air sheds that have been moving from Pakistan to India going to Bangladesh. So as a result, there needs to be a cooperation between these countries so that they are able to cooperate with each other. That is also very, very important if we have to solve this problem of air pollution, right? हाँ जी, ये बहुत जरूरी है कि अगर हमें एयर पोल्यूशन की प्रॉब्लम को सॉल्व करना है, देन वी हैव टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट वी हैव टू हैव अ कोऑपरेशन बिकॉज दिस इज द एयर शेड्स दैट आर मूविंग फ्रॉम पाकिस्तान टू इंडिया एंड देन गोइंग टू बांग्लादेश. सो इट इज नॉट ओनली अ रीजनल प्रॉब्लम बट इट इज अ नेबरहुड प्रॉब्लम दैट हैज टू बी रिजॉल्व्ड क्विकली. ओके, आई थिंक this is it for today, right? And yes, we are done with the today's analysis. You have any doubt, you can ask me. AP क्या है? What you are saying in AP? हाँ जी, ओके राइट. फकरेश, आई थिंक वो न्यूज़पेपर में आज कवर नहीं हुआ है, मेरे को एक बार देखना पड़ेगा. अरुणाचल प्रदेश, ओके. गवर्नमेंट इज यस, गवर्नमेंट इज प्लानिंग इन्वेस्टमेंट इन अरुणाचल प्रदेश. उन्होंने वहां पे अपनी आईटीबीपी की बटालियन को भी बढ़ाया है. And then they have launched the vibrant village program there as well in order to make sure that we have vibrant villages that will be able to beat the villages that have been dwelled by China and Tibet. तो उसको काउंटर करने के लिए तो हम बना रहे हैं, right? So this is the point that has been there. हाँ जी, any other doubt anyone has that I shall be taking? Right, so today's newspaper was very, very important. It had a lot of news and you have to cover each and every news, right? जो मैंने डिस्कस करी है वो सारी की सारी इंपॉर्टेंट है. यू हैव टू मेक श्योर दैट यू आर रीडिंग द न्यूज़पेपर अ लिटिल बिट, क्योंकि अब आप पढ़ोगे आपको मैक्सिमम 20 मिनट्स लगेंगे एंड यू जस्ट हैव टू एक्सट्रैक्ट द इंपॉर्टेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन एंड पुट इट इन योर नोट्स. सो राइट, थैंक यू सो मच, टेक केयर, बाय बाय. वी विल सी ईच अदर टुमारो सेम टाइम 9 AM. टिल देन टेक केयर, राइट? चलिए, थैंक यू सो मच.